Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Banter, where we review every single Palme d'Or winner. And while we do have a new Palme d'Or winner out of the Cannes Film Festival this week,
yes,
that is not the film we were talking about this time. We entrusted our lives.
It'd be a quick turnaround for us.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be fast. That'd be a fast one.
We spun the wheel, and the wheel gave us the longest movie that has ever won the Palme d'Or. That would be Winter Sleep, Kisu Kisu, a Turkish film directed by Nuri Bilge Ceylan. And a rather interesting film. Long. Undeniable.
Long.
Over 3 hours.
Yeah.
But
I don't know anyone who would disagree that this is a long film.
I don't know.
Someone who only watches 4-hour movies. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Oh, light and breezy.
Speaking of disagreements, though, to remind you of what we did last time, because we had a disagreement, and we put it to the polls. And as it happens, Election Day hasn't come yet, so the polls are still open. The voting is still there.
Yes.
Because I'm counting the votes, and there are no votes.
No.
I checked right
the video
before we
went
started.
up like 4 hours ago.
So,
So we'll cross that bridge if we get there, but hopefully this film just won't enter into the same 1-2 position.
Yeah.
To remind you of this specific quandary that we're dealing with, there are 2 rankings that are the number 1 and the number 2 ranking on our list. Forget that. There's 2 groups right at the top of the list that are all bunched up with the same score. We got 9.2's got like 2 movies, and 9.1 has like 5 movies. And last time we talked about the film Farewell, My Concubine, Chen Kaige's film, and we said that one got a 9.1 to make it the 5th 9.1 on the list. And so then the floodgates opened. What do we do about that? Well, we deliberated, and the spot that we felt comfortable with it going, at least shuttling out the decision off to you audience members, was at spot number, well, it doesn't have a spot. It's below The Pianist and maybe above Underground, but we were debating The Pianist versus
it's between yes, exactly.
Farewell, My Concubine. So we need your help. If you have an opinion, if you've seen one, both, or half of these movies, write down in the comments which one should win. Which one should go on top of each other?
Oh, I thought you meant like only half of one of them. Like, that'd be really unfortunate.
We also have no Quest voter ID law, right? So you could have watched none of them and vote anyway.
There's no voter ID
no
here.
real ID.
No, don't get
no
that.
real ID here.
No passports, no little gold star. Just your opinion. Just your opinion.
We're not impeding on your God-given right to decide some Quest movie sometimes.
There you have it. That's what happened last time.
Quest gerrymandering when?
We'll get there, buddy.
Tucker, you're gonna end up with a really tiny little video window, and Tanner's is gonna like go halfway across the frame.
I'm gonna be expanding through. Hey, I got the population numbers. What can I say?
That's true. The point is, voting has never been predicated on it being informed or having the requisite knowledge. So we're not going to start here with Quest.
No,
exactly. If you want to go based on vibes alone, so be it.
So be it.
And this is what's exciting, that the timing has worked out as it has, because we're about to go away for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So the vote is going to be left in suspense for a while. We'll be gone for a couple weeks.
Couple weeks.
We'll be back. I don't remember when.
In June,
sometime
mid-June.
We'll be back in June. Little peeling of the curtain here. I'm moving, so I'm moving away from Austin, and I'm going to a new city, a new place. You'll see which one it is when I show up there in mid-June. And
are you gonna have some choice landmarks just outside the window, Timo?
I hope so.
Towers, maybe?
I hope so. A couple
One or
towers.
two?
There's only one in now, Tucker. Well, we spilled the beans.
Wow.
We're gonna go on hiatus. Let's talk about the film. Abram, do you have anything to report from the comments section, or are we just gonna let it be a desert wasteland out there this week?
I have a comment on the Mission Impossible review. I'll put this to the jurisdiction. Should I read this, or should I get right into the movie?
We can read it. We haven't stopped us before.
That's true. Let me get my readers on, because we got a new commenter here.
Oh, brother, here he goes.
It's in the vein of a comment that we received a little earlier, where someone went in to check on a great film. They wanted to go watch the Malay Affair, and then they noticed that not a single comment was about Malay Affair.
Whatever.
The Matai Affair. Whatever. I did.
Jesus Christ! Come on, man.
Now
the host of a show here.
Matai Affair. Star Wars comments. No comments about the film. Sorry. Keep going.
Vincent Seidel 954 said on the review of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, is it my favorite Mission Impossible film? No, but it was such a thrill ride and enjoyable to watch. Great theater experience. Definitely missed more of the team aspect that other films had. And I'll always be mad Rebecca didn't want to come back. But Haley Atwell was fantastic. I guess spoilers for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. But if you're watching this review of Winter Sleep, either you don't care or you already have.
You're a huge fan.
Or you're Phil, and Phil, I apologize. The sub scene and plane scenes were nothing that can be compared to other movies. I just appreciate that Tom is out here working for the fans and wanting to put out top-notch films. I'd still recommend everyone see this. Vincent, you had a couple typos in there, and I pretended that they weren't there. You should thank me. I won't do it twice. Thank you for commenting.
Let me tell you, Vince is not watching this. Vince is a random commenter who found a review of Final Reckoning. He's not watching this.
Let's not be so hasty and determine what Vincent is or isn't watching on this channel. Okay?
I mean, both belong to the canon of slow cinema.
That's true. Both were
Excellent point.
at the Cannes Film Festival.
That's also a good point.
By the by.
True. And both have things I didn't even know you could put in movies. And,
wow.
I didn't even know you could put a guy in a plane and put him off I can't believe that they let him do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great movie.
Talk about
speaking of great movies.
Let's talk about Winter Sleep. Tanner, little plot synopsis. What happens in this 3-hour movie?
Sure, absolutely, Timo. So this is
It's 3:16, that's right.
3:13 without credits.
Stone Cold Steve Austin or whatever.
Actually, very true. Very true. Very true. Anyway, this film is a film about our main character is Aiden. He is a hotel manager / ex theater actor who lives in the high mountains of Turkey. Like I said, he owns a sort of hotel. It also has a couple other scattered properties throughout the town down below him. And Aiden's an aging man. He has a wife who is substantially younger than him. They also live at this hotel with Aiden's sister. And I mean, there's not really a huge inciting incident here by any means. The inciting incident is that while they are going to go to do a sort of rent check on one of the tenants that Aiden oversees, one of the tenant's child throws a rock at the window of the car, and then that sort of just spins out into a whole thing of Aiden's wife and sister really just laying bare that they fucking hate him and have hated him for years and years and years, and that they think that he's a miserable guy. And Aiden also has to he goes on a little trip to near Istanbul, I believe, but still out in the country.
He's going to go to Istanbul and then does not.
Oh yeah, he's going. Yeah. He the train can't get there or something. What I mean to say is that this is largely a film about the interpersonal conflicts that arise as they are all just sort of puttering around this hotel as winter sets in this remote part of Turkey.
Mm-hmm. And Tanner, since you gave us such a nice description right there, what did you think of your viewing experience and the film as a whole?
Yeah, I liked it. I think this is very, very good. I think there are perhaps some of the richest characterizations in this film that we've ever gotten in this series. I mean, certainly the film, sort of lends itself to that by nature of its length and just having these incredibly extended dialogue sequences, argument sequences. There's one in the film that is nearly 20 minutes long, I would say, of the same conversation. And they are really illuminating towards what our characters think of one another and think of themselves and think of the world around them and everything. It is quite fascinating from that standpoint. It is almost like a work of literature adapted to the screen. I mean, it literally is. I learned that it's a is it Dostoevsky? I have to look.
It's Chekhov.
Chekhov's the wife.
Well, yeah, Chekhov's wife. It's an adaptation of that, but obviously much longer than that book.
And when the wife shows up earlier in the story, you got to bring the wife around by the end of the story.
Very good, very good. But no, yeah, I mean, pretty fascinating character-wise. I assume that's what our conversation will be predicated on today. And I do want to get your guys' thoughts on our main guy here, because I think it's sort of a Rorschach test of what do you see in him? What do you think of him?
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to hear what the rest of you guys thought as well.
Okay. Well, very interesting, Tanner. Abram, what do you think next?
So I said, kind of, because I was vamping, that this movie, like Mission Impossible, Final Reckoning, had things they never put in movies before, right?
Right.
And that was just me vamping for the most part. There's nothing like this submarine sequence of Mission Impossible, Final Reckoning, and Winter Sleep. But what there is instead is
I watched a different cut then.
Oh yeah, when Aiden goes down into a sunken submarine.
I think there is a little some sprinkle on top of this movie that I've never experienced really, because I think this movie is outstanding, and I think that the writing is just absolutely electric, and I found myself hanging on every single word, and I just simply didn't expect that going into the film. Obviously, it's helped by the fact that it's just such a beautifully shot movie that simply every image after the next is like, God damn, you can't have this many images this good in sequence, right? But they can. And I found myself thinking about another recent
about 24
favorite.
a second.
Very true.
In fact.
I found myself thinking of a recent favorite from a couple years ago, Ryusuke Hamaguchi's "Drive My Car."
Sure.
In
very similar vibe.
Yeah, in pacing, in depth of dialogue, and I guess literally textually the Chekhov's work being central to both of these in a meta and a just a textual manner, and like that film, I think I just found myself so engrossed by the conversations our characters were having that I kind of lost track of anything else. And at one point, I even rewound. I'm like, "Wait, I don't feel like I quite caught what he said," and I want to know. So yes, I was completely blown away by Winter's Sleep.
Wow, Tucker, do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts?
No, yeah, I do agree. This is, for me, maybe a little longer than I would want a movie of this pacing and content to be, in terms of, I think that its length ultimately detracted from my enjoyment of it, but not to a significant enough degree to where I wasn't still fascinated by it. I think that once we really start to get a sense of the conflict between the characters, that's when I really start to become much more engaged by it. I'm like, okay, the situation is pretty interesting. The location is interesting, but I don't really feel like you get a great sense of who Aiden is as a character until like 35, 40 minutes into the movie. And then once the conversations with specifically the women in his life start to become more prevalent, I'm like, this is where this movie's real meat is. It's about the way we see other people and the way we see ourselves, and the philosophies and differing philosophies that people have in terms of how we should treat one another, how we should view one another, how we should act around one another. And I find that all very philosophically and sociologically fascinating. So I'm sitting there drinking in these conversations that are about the differing philosophies that people can have, but they're also like the single most passive aggressive conversations that any characters have ever had in the history of film. And so it gives this film an edge to it, which you don't expect from something that is shot like an art movie and paced like an art movie, but within it houses these characters that harbor deep resentment towards one another. And so they discuss these topics that in another movie you would see, like, this is weird, but I kept thinking of the ship sequence in Poor Things where all the characters are just talking about philosophy to one another. And I kept thinking about that, but I'm like, no, that's nowhere near as it's obviously a little bit funnier in that movie, but in this movie, it comes with like a darker side to it, because the reason they're talking about these philosophies is because they disagree and they want to express them without going like full in. They just want to they would hit you right in the place where it hurts, or hit each other right in the place where it hurts. So totally unique. Loved the way it looked. Thought all the performances were absolutely stunning. Great movie. Just a measly 230 would have been excellent. A measly 230.
Well, I don't know if I agree on the runtime thing, but I agree with pretty much everything else. I found this movie to be very surprising and honestly quite entertaining and thought-provoking. The kind of stylistic canon that I put it in my mind is the kitchen sink realism, like a Kenneth Loach kind of film. This this one,
you're not a real first name, Bajet.
Can fave Ken Loach. Yeah.
The class consciousness of this film is like off the charts to me. I think the way that this film so nimbly places class, and how none of the characters discuss class, but it's very, very evident where the hierarchy is, who's got the money, who doesn't have the money, and how that makes everybody act different around each other. I find our main character to be so intensely Scrooge-like and dislikable that I have to keep watching because I'm fascinated by what he does in these situations. And then we have these other characters in this film that I think are actually really likable and really well fleshed out, rounded characters that then come into conflict with this total Scrooge at the center of the whole thing. And, I think Aiden's plot and his character development is a lot more than just kind of this like money and class and Scroogeness. I think he gets a lot more development, but this central idea that we start the film with and we lead it into, and then we get to pull those ideas, and it's like taking a big thing of yarn and you're pulling out the individual threads of it. And you have this, like, I think Abraham or one of you were saying about how in the second part of the film, the women, both of the women in Aiden's life kind of reveal to him how much they just truly dislike this guy. And that, at least for his wife, is, I think, related to money. And so, well, they talk about it a lot, but it comes out of this kind of charity and this thing. This unlikable central character really makes it for me because he's so fascinating, and I am so incentivized to like pathologize this guy. I feel that the film is making me figure things out about his character through his actions and his words, and like really drilling down and studying, like, what does this guy actually think? And you can get there. I think you can fully get there with the characterization that we're given. And I think it's a very accurate, it's not a very nice portrait. It's a very human one at the same time, though. So this was quite a surprising pick for me, and an enjoyable watch that I was like, well, okay, we'll sit down and check this one out. And you know what? Quite happy to have done it. So Tucker, where should we begin? The obvious spot or the not obvious spot? And you can decide what any of that means.
Yeah, I guess that is vague, but I think the obvious spot is to start with Aiden and the way in which Yeah, I know. The way in which he is an unlikable character, that that he rationalizes everything. And that's what makes him so fascinating as a human presence, because you say he's Scrooge-like, but he certainly is not cartoonishly so. He's not a cartoonish villain. But he's like things that he does that are
real.
Sorry,
he's a very real life Scrooge.
Yeah, because you can, even if you intensely dislike him or disagree with him in these things, he is very good at explaining why he thinks things to the point where you're almost like, okay, this makes sense. But then he gives someone a look or disregards something they say. And you're like, there's something deeper going on here that is much more sinister, but not in like a malicious way or even almost intentional. It's very perplexing the way in which he is a negative portrayal of humanity. Is he
intentionally
don't think
that
he
way?
Wants to hurt people. Yeah. I think that he has baked his beliefs so deeply into himself, and he's, as I said, rationalized them to a certain point to where he's just able to be like, no, like, this is just the situation we're in. Like, there are winners and there are losers. And even though he is a man in position of power, specifically financial power, he doesn't really realize, because it is something that's so ingrained in who he has, the personality he has created as a person, that he doesn't realize the power he truly has and the way he could use it.
Yes, you named it right there, Tucker. I think the crux of this first hour and 30, maybe 2 hours of the film is him not realizing.
Yeah, the first little bit of the movie.
Yeah, like the first. It's lovely when a movie's in 3 hours. So you're like, oh, the first third, and then you're like, the first hour, more like.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize who he is or what he is to these other people. Let's just start out with describing who he is. The former actor who now owns a hotel and a bunch of property passed down to him from his father. The property was not his, but it was his father's, and the tenants have stayed the same. So we have like a super classic, if we're going to take like the Maoist definition of a landlord, this guy is it.
Just coming off of Feral My Concubine, you might as well.
Like you might as well. So this guy, as a landlord and as someone who is wealthy and who has, according to himself, worked for his own wealth. He worked in the theater and worked his way up. Let's ignore the fact that the properties exist. This is one of the many things he doesn't realize about his position. But the ways in which he doesn't realize the people coming to him and asking for help, and what his wife is doing with the committee underneath his nose. He doesn't seem to care until he does care, and then when he does care about it, he tries to solve the problems with money. But since he didn't actually care, and it's obvious that to his wife that he didn't care, it's unwelcome help. And so especially with our inciting incident with the kid throwing the rock, he doesn't get the social requirements of these kind of interactions that are going on. He's trying to, like, in his mind, being nice to his tenants and like letting them go and like letting them be forgiven for this small thing is like telling them it's nothing and requiring nothing of them. But to the tenants, it's completely the opposite. That what he wants in the situation is the worst thing that they could want, and that they have so much more need from him in these social circumstances that he's just unaware of, or, if we want to take him as a more sinister character, is actively not wanting to participate in. The kid kissing his hand, these kind of non-money gestures to show some sort of appreciation, to show this kind of fealty, honestly. And it's, well, we can go back to the Mao's perspective, like fealty for what? The dude is a landlord. I'll end it there, but there's this intense mismatch between his social expectations and everybody else's social expectations, and it causes a lot of conflict. And it's fascinating to watch because it's like, how, as an artist, how do you create a scene in which the viewer can so perfectly understand some social cues of a culture that's not mine, of one that I don't know much about, speaking another language. And yet I do feel like I really understood what these characters, what their motivations and their goals, particularly the tenant family, all throughout the narrative. And it was like really, really rich to watch and to see these kind of ideologies, but really more like the practices. This film, I think, is a lot more about ideology and practice. What do you actually do to help your neighbors? What do you actually do as a landlord? Like what does that ideology result in your community? And so there's just, I mean, I know I spouted quite a lot just there, but lots and lots of fascinating things.
Can I ask that you spout one more thing?
Sure.
For as someone who's not familiar with Maoism as myself, what is the connection between Maoism and specifically landlords that you keep referencing?
Well,
Mao, he killed all the landlords in China. I mean, he said that they were evil and that they were unable to be reintegrated into society, that the character of the landlord was one that could not be reintegrated, and so that there's one logical solution, and that you need to kill them all. And so,
and on that note, we say nothing.
We say nothing. If I say anything, I will get in trouble. Mao hates landlords. That's all you really need to know.
That's
okay,
all.
All right, great. I appreciate it.
That's the thing at the end. I mean, I guess. I don't know.
By the way, I thought you meant Taoism at first, and I was like, that's why I was at first really confused. And then when you said Mao Zedong, that's right, it's a different thing.
So I guess by the time a certain conversation, the conversation between Aiden and Nihal, his wife, rolls around, that's where I really clicked into, like, this guy fucking sucks. This guy is the worst, and I think that the question of, like, does he know he's the worst? Is he intentionally doing these things? I feel like is maybe less important than the fact that he is doing them. And that he is ultimately in these conversations being told that he is doing them and is refusing to change and all of these things. But it's the conversation with his wife that I think lays a lot of these things to bear. I mean, the longest, the 20-minute conversation that I alluded to earlier is with Nicola, his sister. But the conversation with his wife is so good because like she hates him too for like stealing her youth from him and like enticing her into this position of power, but like are these crocodile tears that she's like, oh, I'm too rich and I'm alienated from everyone around me. Like, do we really feel sympathy for her? I think ultimately you do, because you look at the guy who is controlling her and has put her life in this position. And I think that even the more insidious thing for me is the fact that the way that she pathologizes him as, you will just say and try to talk your way up and try to talk your way out of anything that anybody says to you. Whether that be a criticism or whether that be stroking your ego or anything. Yes.
No, I was just refocusing my camera. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were putting your hand up to ask me a question. Whether it be anything, the way that she like says, you have used your position of wealth and power and intellectualism too. That is something that is very important to his character.
Because we forgot that he is this columnist in this newspaper that depending on who you ask, either everybody reads or nobody reads.
Yeah. He uses his
I think nobody reads.
I don't think anybody reads it.
In everybody's mind to just continually put himself on a pedestal from every conceivable direction, and he will, whether that be like he'll try to be like, oh, how pitiful I am, like how tortured I am to have this existence, and everyone be looking up to me and everything like that, or I'm sorry that I failed you as a husband. Like, he's able to neg and talk his way out of basically any situation, and she realizes that, and in that conversation is like basically completely cutting ties with him. And then that's what makes the end so interesting for me as well. I want to talk about that ending, the final sort of like monologue over narration that he has, and whether that is supposed to be, whether you guys view that as sympathetic or, like I do, kind of like a reaffirmation of his maliciousness, his manipulative nature.
Yeah, well, let's save that for a little while. Let's get through some of the middle more of the movie. But yes, this ending is quite quizzical in my mind.
Yes, this ending, yeah.
Yes, the ending.
Well.
Oh, the ending of the movie is interesting. Wow.
Interesting.
We're hitting new levels of criticism here.
I was really interested in an early conversation that IGN has with Hamdi, the imam, when he comes to visit, and he is first asking and sort of recounting, he's asking for sort of leniency, and he's recounting the way that the loan sharks, unbeknownst to Aiden, went and roughed up Ismail, and Hamdi's older brother. And Aiden's position there is,
or younger brother, depending on who you ask.
Oh my god, I was making the same joke.
Aiden's position there is very interesting because he refuses to engage with two dimensions of Hamdi's pitch. The first dimension is the lenience and deep relationship that Hamdi and his family had with Aiden's father when he was the landlord. And then he also refuses to engage with any sort of culpability in what the loan sharks did, in the seizure of their property in lieu of paying the rent, or in Ismail being beaten up. And I think that this character is so interesting because he exists often like in a state of apathy where he can. And I'm really interested in the conversation he has with Nekla, where she is pressing him on the way that he writes about issues like spirituality
and religion,
with which he has no personal connection. And we come to understand this character in an intriguing way, because he like both does and doesn't represent like this literary idea of pose, of presenting in what would be deemed to your audience as correct instead of acting that way, right? We both see him embody and not embody this idea. I think about his drunken conversation at the end of the film with the teacher, and we learn that he donated money in a crisis, but did not open his hotel to the people there helping fight against a natural disaster.
Mhm.
And so we have instances wherein,
Or he opened the hotel to people entering the country to help the natural disaster,
Yes,
but not
like
to the
humanitarian workers and
people,
not
to the people
refugees.
whose
Yeah,
houses were destroyed.
yeah.
and so he has this view of the world that he articulates, and this interest in speaking about how men of the Muslim faith in Turkey ought to act in a way, groom themselves in a way,
Mhm.
interact with other people in a way that is becoming of their religion and their status as men. He has this idea of religion. He has this idea of society. He has these principles, and this idea of principles is a recurrent one.
Yeah.
His actions aren't aligned, or sometimes they are, but his pose is not. He doesn't act in the same way that his money acts. And I think that at the heart of this film, in a word, it's about dissonance. The
Mhm.
dissonance between what he says and writes and what he does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what makes him such a complicated character to me is that I don't think it's always his words or always his actions that are superior. I think he's like his compass is a little bit unmagnetized.
He like gets to
Yeah.
pick which one is gonna be the one that matters.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
if
It
it's
depends
gonna be
on the
writing or
situation, the
money.
person, what's
Mhm.
going to get him out. Because I like what you said about refusal of culpability, Abram. That's
Mhm.
very much like, I'm honestly, that's like his core character trait. And that is something that I find really fascinating, and like his unmagnetized moral compass. Because that is why I have a hard time thinking that he is like an intentionally malicious character.
Mhm.
Or they keep bringing up this idea of evil, him being an evil character, because
Mm.
he does ultimately do things that are charitable to a degree. Opening your hotel for people that are providing humanitarian aid, I would consider that a good thing. The
Mhm.
line where then you don't cross that to invite other people in is like curious, and makes you wonder a little bit more about how he sees different group of people and things.
Mhm.
He is allowing his tenants months and months and months of going without paying their rent, but then there becomes a certain line where he becomes unwilling to push his charitability even further. And so I find him fascinating because that is his human element, is that he's not consistent. I think it would be a lot more cartoonish and less believable if he was like always committed to one specific way of treating people. But the fact that he is bobbing and weaving and putting on sort of different faces for different people, I find that to be why he's a compelling character. And then also because of that, he becomes even more confusing and unlikable, because you
Mm.
want him to be consistent. You want him to either be this or that, but he's not, which is really, really texturally interesting,
See,
I think.
no, see, for me, I interpret that, like, especially what you mentioned about like allowing his tenants to not pay for months and months or whatever. I interpret that as a different sort of maliciousness in his character, in that an element of what he is that he's a Weasley cowardly guy.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
from this very opening sequence when he and his assistant, and his assistant's name escapes me at this time, but that persistent character. Yeah, thank you. When they roll up to this house that has Ishmael and Ishmael's family and the young boy and the imam and everything like that. When they roll up there, Aiden is like hanging back the whole time. He is not getting up. He's letting his assistant get up there and get in Ishmael's face and everything like that. When Ishmael comes back out of the house, he's like basically hiding behind the door of this truck.
Yeah.
And
but Tanner,
yes,
but we can build that case in that scene even stronger, because in the truck ride prior, part of Aiden's plan is that he is going to let them lapse into truancy long enough to sue them.
Yeah, he's gonna sue
sure.
them.
Yeah,
And
I forgot about that.
They also send the debt collectors along to go beat up Ishmael. Like, he is averse to conflict, at least physical conflict that he cannot handle himself. I think is the most important one. Intellectual arguments, he is very comfortable in that world, at least with particular people. I think the conversation between the teacher and that older man at the end of the film, I think you can kind of see that he's a little bit wary in that conversation. He cannot
and drunk.
And drunk. Good point. But he cannot he's not as comfortable lording over them with his intellectualism as he is with his sister or his wife or anything like that. So that whole thing I view as a different part of his manipulative nature, that he is also a coward when it comes to things that he cannot handle or he cannot control.
You can tell when he's not being a coward though. And this is the craziest and most interesting part of, let me get the actor's name.
Here we go.
Mr. Haluk Bilginer. His performance is that he's got this fucking smile. Fucking smile that he does when he knows that he's got a position of power, that he knows that he's winning, I guess. And even in situations where he's not. And that is incorporating the acting side of his character, the acting history and presumably talent that he has in that area. Because he puts on this honestly, guy's got a great poker face. Excellent poker face. When your wife of X amount of years is basically telling you that she hates you and for these reasons, and you're standing there the whole time,
and it's not
Jesus Christ, this guy is committed to his bit.
She gives incredibly detailed and specific reasons of which he asks for too.
That is why that scene in particular is the one I'm like, oh, this guy is in a series of this Quest series where we've talked about numerous films that feature Nazis. I'm like, this might be one of the worst guys we've ever talked about. Is this scene right here? I mean, even the way that Bilgesh Chelan lights that scene with the fireplace and he's wearing this turned up trench coat that is casting a shadow on his face as he's turned profile, and as Tucker mentioned, has this smirk on his face.
And then
this guy's fucking evil, dude.
And the blocking of all these scenes with his family members, his wife and his sister, they just don't look at each other, and we just cut from single back to single. Single.
Even mirror shots that completely separate them, and they're always the women are always in the background of the shots, farther away in the scene.
Yeah, they're they're in the background of his mind.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean this idea of his relation to conflict, I think, is really important, because if you want to find a consistency in his character, look no further than that. I think about the way that he has sort of his case to Nilal is that I give you whatever freedom you want. I give you your part of the house. I don't bother you, right? I'm not... divorce for him is secondary to creating an environment for her that is separate from his. Yeah. And I think that this is really key to understanding the way that he navigates all of his relationships. Even the way that he tells Nicola in one of their skirmishes that, your sharp tongue is why you have no friends. Yeah. And your husband abused you. But he's sitting right in that chair, keeping trying to type. He's happy for her to live in the house. He can't resolve the issue. He can only find some way to coexist with the issue. And I think that that's an interesting dimension of his character, because we also know that he is fragile. He's concerned about his name. He's concerned about the reputation that he holds. He's interested in being some sort of authority on theater. His office is decorated with his achievements in the past, but as Nicola reminds him, he was never as famous as perhaps he wanted to be. There's this dialogue exchange that I find so interesting between him and one of the passerbys of the hotel, where he's talking about how there was a time that he met with Omar Sharif, and Sharif passed on this. Yeah, he passed on this lesson about
True.
how acting is about honesty, but the way he frames the conversation, they weren't talking as equals. It was closer to a fan meeting. It was
Mm-hmm.
when Omar Sharif discovered I was an actor. The picture is in the lobby when presumably he came to stay at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there is a dissonance between his actual
No, I don't even think
fides.
I don't think he had the hotel at that point. They were somewhere else, as they mentioned. It was like
Sure.
out in a different area.
And the guy looks it up and is like, that was 20 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
no, you're right. I was just thinking that it is there because somebody
And-
asks
Well,
about.
you
if it was
mentioned
there.
you mentioned the
Yeah.
fragility.
Yeah.
I think that this kind of facade of who he wants to be, he
He doesn't have
has,
fragile masculinity. He has fragile humanity.
yes, his
Mhm.
website's got pictures of horses and stuff on it. And then some guy
Oh,
comes and
yeah.
asks him about do you have horses here at the hotel? And he's like, no, that was just for decoration. And then
Dude,
what does he go and
imagine
do? He goes and
Introducing
contracts.
Ken to Iden.
Oh my
That'd
god,
go crazy.
that'd go crazy. He goes and gets a horse, right? Like he goes off
Yeah.
and has the
but never does anything with it. It's performative.
it's completely
Exactly.
performative.
It's absolutely performative. And I
As
love that
is
scene
this
too.
Omar Sharif story. It's completely
Yeah.
performative just to make himself look cooler, make the hotel seem better.
I love that scene of when he's watching the horse being wrangled too, because there is like there's an uncomfortable look on his face, seeing this thing be like taken for him almost, or it's and then he doesn't do anything with it. I think Tucker, you mentioned that he doesn't have fragile masculinity, but I think masculinity in particular is very important to his character. That he's seeing like this essentially like a Turkish cowboy like wrangle this wild stallion for him, just like hand it over for him, and then he does nothing with it. He just like lets it loose towards the end of the movie. I mean, in particular, I think that at a certain point it clicked for me. It was like, this guy's just kind of like going through a midlife crisis at a certain point.
Yeah.
But
Seems like he might be going through a life crisis. To be
exactly.
honest.
But I
there's
think
some- there's
the
something
age
about
of him is important.
Exactly. The particular age, he is a particularly aged man, I think, where he has provided for his family. He sees that his father has owned all of this land, has put him in this position of power, and he has warped that in his mind that he must be needed by any measure. He must be needed in any scenario. He must be looked up to as a figure of importance in any scenario, which is kind of what I get back to. Like, he always tries to talk himself up, no matter what that would entail, no matter what beliefs he sort of has to adopt to do so. And also, like, the fact that he wants to maintain the status quo of having his sister live with him, of having his wife live with him, or whatever. Like, he doesn't really care that they're in love, that they spend time together, just so long as she lives in his house, or lives in his hotel, or whatever, and that she...
His carved out rock mountainside.
Exactly. And that she is reliant on him. And he tries to make her more reliant on him. That's why he is so incensed at, like, her organizing this fundraising event that he is not allowed to be a part of. Like, he is, and it goes back to that my favorite. I think probably my favorite scene in the movie is that conversation between him and his wife. That argument when he like takes all of the things and he's like, "I'm gonna go do this by myself. Sure, you don't know how to do any of this."
Yeah.
And then he looks at me.
This is such a relatable moment. Oh my god! Like, this is why
Yes,
this
I
character is
agree.
so fascinating, because like, I pick up a stack of ostensibly financial documents. Boom, I'm looking for that top sheet. I'm looking for that everything on one table. I want to see all that data put onto one piece of paper. And so just like that element of his character of like, yeah, like you say, he needs to be needed. He needs to insert himself into this process. And in his mind, he's like, well, I'll do the accounting, I guess. And yet it's unhelpful. It's not needed. They've gotten on fine for however many years it's been happening. And like, it's like,
it's uber passive aggressive too, to what Tucker mentioned earlier.
well, because he like insults her ability to do this work by being like, "This doesn't exist. What are you even doing?" Like,
it is the fact that he's like, "Well, I'm helping you. Obviously, like you're going to get in trouble because this is going to happen, or that's going to happen."
I feel like he tries to
come back on you,
come up with excuses to get involved. Though,
absolutely.
like honestly, he's like, word salad mishmash. I know this shit. Like, and obviously you don't. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there as an audience member. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm like, I don't even know if those are real things. Like, I feel like he might just be like posing, like saying these things to try to convince her that
Listen,
he
and I
should be doing this.
I won't point any fingers, but like I've had that scenario happen to me numerous times where like you say something's going on in your life, you give it. I'm not pointing any fingers. It's not you. It's not you.
I don't even really know what in our relationship or our life would have happened where I would have done
like,
that.
you're talking about these things, and then someone's like, they come in as an authority figure because they can't be outdone. They have to assert themselves in some fashion, no matter what the scenario is. And that's Timo, of course. But no, like that is truly that scene and that whole scenario of him taking the documents and then very funnily him being like, oh, I don't know, you take him back, I guess. I don't really know. Like when he comes back with them, that is what makes him such an infuriating character to me.
I want to think about problematic age gaps.
Okay, here we go.
This is why the screen. I'm joking about that, but the reason that the screenplay is so good to me is that you can't miss a line of dialogue. You miss a line of dialogue, you're light years away from the point. There is one moment between Aiden and his name is Suavi. I think that's how you'd say it.
Yeah, like friend of his, the other wealthy guy.
Yeah, is that the older man like that they're drinking with at the end? Okay.
Yeah, it's whose house he goes to at the end.
Excuse me. But earlier in the film, he comes to visit Aiden, and they're running to another little part of the hotel complex into his office to sit down, and they're going to have a conversation. And Suave makes this comment about the fact that people could perceive Nalal to be young enough to be Aiden's daughter.
Right.
And I think that...
By the way, I think that's the first time she's ever even mentioned in the screenplay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Haven't seen her at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's interesting because I think that the film goes to lengths to that
The Chekhov's wife, if you will.
Goes to lengths to that point in the narrative to sort of confuse the relationship that he has to these two women. This older character that you would assume is his wife, Nicola, who's in the background in his study while he's writing. It feels like an intimate moment.
And seems to come and hang out kind of a lot, just kind of hangs out, and they just are there together doing their own thing quietly, separately.
And we come to learn that it's just a familial moment, and it's a strangely like charged and an animus moment. But when Nalal comes in the narrative more, I had to actually pause and just be like, okay, hold on, which is the wife and which is the sister? And I think that that's an intentional choice, because framing this relationship between him and Nalal as awkward in age, in the way that
I
it's
think her name is Nihal,
established.
by the way.
Nihal,
Nihal. Yes.
The way that Nihal and him don't seem to cohere as any sort of actual intimate unit is very important, and it lends this whole conversation we're talking about when he revisits Nihal this also very patronizing vibe. You know, you're going to get caught up in this financial scheme where there's going to be this embezzlement, and the embezzlement is going to get you thrown into jail, and it's going to defame me, and it's all going to be a whole big embarrassing episode. One is twice the age of the other. And in that, by Nihal's admission, Aiden took from her very key years of her life and trapped her in this literal prison, but also this emotional one, and this very real precarious position wherein, and he even taunts her with this in this scene. We could have just reviewed this one scene from the movie.
Honestly.
He taunts her with this idea of saying, what would you do? Okay, you're going to leave me? Okay, what would you do? You're going to go to Istanbul and you're going to live on a minimum wage
Which is just
salary?
like, it was a total domineering, evil, controlling way to talk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think from...
Red flag.
Yeah, it is a red flag. It's a dating red flag.
Canceled.
And so I think that the way that she's not only held at an arm's distance, but introduced in a way where the relationship feels uncanny from the beginning, flicks into place a lot of the undertones of that scene later in the film.
Yeah. And what I also will say about the relationship that I found fascinating as we learned more about it through only arguments is that we never learn what their relationship was like and if it ever was caring or loving. There is a moment, I think it's in his ending dialogue, where he's like, I don't think we'll ever get back how it was or something like that, but it's very vague. And I found it interesting that there was never any exploration, and I think obviously this isn't very intentional, but never any exploration of what they had lost together. Yeah. We're just introduced to this as this is how their relationship has always been. And that very well might be the case, but and I think that's actually kind of opposed to everyone else, to where we learn how his relationship with his sister has evolved over time, because we learn about her history with her husband and her moving in, and we learn about specifically Ismail and his brother, whose name is Hamdi, their history with him going to jail, and Hamdi as the imam of this town, having a complicated history with that as a person of importance, but not any financial position. We learn about these histories with these other characters. We never learn about really what happened between them. I mean, like, God damn, I'd love to know how they met. I'd love to know what their wedding was like. I'd love to know, honestly, if Aiden had previous wives, and what had happened to them, if anything. Like, we learn so much about these histories of the other characters. Even his friend Suavi, who has a daughter who's in London and whose wife has passed away. We get these histories, but we never get Nihal's history. Really, she exists as this force in the narrative that has been trapped, and to the screenplay, her existence starts when she becomes when she meets becomes married and becomes trapped by Aiden, and we don't really know who or what she was like before their marriage, and I find that really fascinating.
This really just makes me want to talk about Nihal's standout scene in which she goes to the Hoji house and brings the envelope.
That was a locking in moment, dude.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. And you're like, what's going on here? And then she's got to explain who she is. They don't even know who she is. And then you have this kind of reenactment of the fealty of the, like, let me get you the tea. Oh, I don't want the tea. I'll get you the tea anyway. And that goes on. And then they're sitting, it's Hamdi and Nihal are sitting there, and she pulls out the money, and they have this really very interesting back and forth conversation about can I take it? What's it for? What to think about it. And then Ismail comes in, and you watch his eyes. He's not in that room 10 seconds. He's not in that room 2 seconds before he notices that envelope of cash on the table. And then he ends up describing what the money is for, all the injustices and the slights that this money is paying off.
Cover up, yes.
And then he tosses it in the fire, and he says, it's too bad I'm a drunk and a bad guy, because this would have done good, but I'm a bad guy, and I throw it in the fire. And just describing that right now really makes me like, wow, this is the way. Back to my high horse from the beginning in here when I talked about the class, like, this is kind of the climax of this class struggle between our characters coming to a head. Not in about like who gets to own the means of production or whatever, but like, how do you say thank you? How do you appreciate something? How do you not let yourself be denigrated or slighted? And the big struggle, both why Ismail goes to jail, and then with the debt collectors, why the kid throws the rocks, is because they're humiliated. They're pushed down. And in a way, the money is just yet another form of humiliation. It's so powerful. It's very important to them. It would solve their problems immediately. But would it solve their problems for more than a year? Would it,
unclear, yeah.
Would it change how Aiden like interacts with the tenants? No, I don't think.
Yeah,
I mean,
and your mind is racing as you think about how this money would impact them. And that's another thing where
and like their eyes just the performances just tell you how much it is. I don't know what the lira is worth. I don't know what a 100 lira bill is like has the purchasing power of, but their eyes tell me it's a lot of money. They tell me that it really matters.
We are given some sense of the monetary value earlier in the film
about the window,
which is another fascinating conversation.
Yeah, yet another. Well, pick a conversation from the movie and describe it with a word other than fascinating. I dare you.
Yeah, that actually, to be honest, that scene. I do want to get back to the later Nihal scene, but that scene where Hamdi comes to visit Aiden and expresses his complicated gratitude, hatred in that moment, and then he's like, "Oh, the money. It's not really about the money, but you know, if you're gonna pay for it, it's 70 lira." I'm not sure if I got that right though. You know, I'm not really the guy who has the books.
Let me bring up my buddy just to make sure.
Yeah, let me bring up my buddy. And to that point, he's like, "Oh, I've got money to cover this, and like I'm ready to give it to you if that's how this is gonna go." And then he's like, and let's show of hands. Does he actually call his assistant, or does he just ring-a-ding-ding bullshit? Hello, bullshit here, I think and is like, oh, actually, it's 170.
I don't think he's like, you know, I talked all this talk of like how evil and what a piece of shit this guy is. I don't think he's like pulling tricks like that.
No, I don't.
He's not
so.
doing. He's not doing
trig
tricks
at the
on
end.
It. What trick?
He pulls trig. He barfs. It's
good point. But yeah, I do honestly think that that he does call that his assistant. But maybe he does remember that it's a little more. I don't know.
Well, I think he's doing that to make it seem like he's less greedy or something. And he's like, oh, he set it to a lower number, and then whether or not it's accurate, how much higher it is, having someone else ostensibly tell him that it's higher, it removes him of the culpability.
Exactly. It's a little bit of, it's that cowardice that I keep going back to, is him like, damn, you know, and you know what? I would have thought it was less. Like, I would have asked for less money, but like, if you're coming to me and asking to pay for the window, like, it actually costs this. But like,
this much.
I understand you can't pay that. So don't worry about it, buddy. You know, a subtext of, you're actually way more indebted to me than you originally thought.
Well,
and all he could have done is just agreed to take the 70.
I mean, he can have 70.
Yeah.
Or says he has like 35 or something. Yeah. The compassionate, uncowardly way to deal with the situation is just to accept the dude's money and move on with it and eat the loss if it truly costs that much more. Like, the guy's rich, he owns a hotel, he can afford it.
Well, but this is the other thing, right? I mean, just in the motion of the scene, he calls, he thinks he doesn't get through, he puts the phone down, and then hears hears Hidyat on the phone and picks it back up. So he's definitely talking to him.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. I forgot.
I think that what you guys are saying is interesting, but to me it also sort of, I think there's a simpler explanation, which is that the difference between 70 lira or 170 lira to Aiden is not entirely immaterial. It doesn't even matter. We see that the small anonymous donation he wants to make to Nihal's
is 10,000.
Yes, I mean, we see in the envelope, because obviously that envelope is the one she tries to present Hamdi with, is a massive sum of money, and it's not material to him, the difference, and I think he's alienated in some ways by his wealth.
Yeah.
And
do not make me go get the book, because you just quoted that guy. You just quoted that guy, but you were right. He's so alienated from everybody. He's alienated from his family, alienated from his community, alienated from his passion.
What's most interesting about that alienation is that Suavi is the only guy who's like clearly known him for a long time, and they would probably consider themselves to be friends. We have a limited interaction between them. We know limited amount about their dynamic previous to what we see on screen. But everyone else, his sister, his maid, the people staying at his hotel, his tenants, his wife, they definitely feel like they either need something from him. There's a lot of interactions to that to that point, or they feel like they can't act truthfully around him because he is a powerful person. And so I think the reason why the sequences in which both Nihal and Nekla basically just open the floodgates in terms of their feelings are so compelling is because they're at odds with the ways that people usually interact with him.
Yeah.
I love this one very small moment of the Imam's Hamdi, sorry, all these names.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Not Hamdi. Also, little behind the scenes. I have no AC here. I live in Texas. I am sweating every part of my body off right now.
Suffering heat stroke right now.
But for film criticism, we power through.
We forge ahead.
But this really small, interesting moment that I think colors Hamdi's character and his performance, especially in a really interesting light, is after the part with the car at the house. I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. You know, I'll pay for it. We're in a very hard position. I appreciate you taking some leniency on us. Yada yada yada. Car drives away, and he goes, "Fucking bastard."
Yeah.
and that to me set my mindset for basically every character going forward. They all harbor some sort of resentment towards him because of more than likely how he has treated them in the past as inferiors, and it is that subtle but very obvious superiority complex that he has, where he acts humble in these situations. No, you don't need to kiss my hand. Oh no,
but he's still holding that hand out. He's like, well, if you insist.
That is what alienates him, and it alienates him from everyone. Guy's got no friends. You know, maybe his father was someone he was connected to in the past, but he's passed away. His sister,
Diet's a yes
another
man.
person.
He just does errands for him.
Oh, totally,
He's
Like initially, I'm like, oh, that's his friend, but then there's these moments where Hedayat is like at the train station where he's like, oh, I should go. You can get the sense that he wants to leave. He wants to get rid of this guy. He's like, can I go back to the hotel? I think they'll probably need me. And he's like, no, stay. And he's like, oh, this is a fucking power dynamic.
Yeah.
And the fact that he even has to ask. Like, he's dropping him off at ostensibly the airport. He should just get the hell out of Dodge if he really wants to leave. But the power dynamic is so inset between the two of them. He feels it necessary to please him and show him that the power dynamic is still there. Be like, should I leave? And the fact that he says no reinforces that power dynamic.
I mean, unfortunately, there are no real-world public examples of incredibly rich and wealthy men like demanding that people like him and demanding popularity from people and demanding positions of power at the same time, and like
not pointing any fingers,
misconstruing that with being liked and being popular. Unfortunately, there are no headline-making figures like that in our modern world.
Not a guy like Aiden who's really, really good at finding and uncovering fraud and wasted spending.
That's right. That's right.
I want to think about money a little bit because we're talking about power, right? And I want to return to the scene with Nihal presenting the money to Hamdi, and specifically presenting the money to Ismail, who burns it. There is this idea throughout the narrative, and I think the editing of the end of the film is very intriguing because as this is unfolding, we have Aiden, who is being confronted by Levent, I believe is the name of the teacher.
He keeps calling him something else, though.
He keeps getting the name wrong.
He doesn't even bother to get the name correct. Well, and here's the interesting thing, right? You want to talk about a guy who likes to wheedle another man, right? He is intimidated by Levent.
I totally agree.
He tries to seed this idea in Nihal's mind that he is untrustworthy, and he's just like, I just know. I just like my guy to guy perception is that this guy's a little bit funky. He calls him by the wrong. Yeah,
my Gaidar.
That's good. That one's good. I like that.
And by the way, everyone here, everyone watching, you can take that. That one's on the house. Use that one in your day-to-day life. No royalties.
Part of me when the joke royalty bill arrives.
Oh no!
Hey, but my dad gets those. They're usually not for very much.
That's true.
He's getting money. I am the one who's paying.
That's right. Yeah, we have to pay out for the royalties.
So we have these two scenes unfolding, and we come to realize in the eyes of the people without money, it's not actually the money that allows somebody like like Nihal or Aiden to relate to those in the classes below them. In fact, the money is an affront, or the money is this irreconcilable gesture. It goes back to what you were saying earlier, Timo, and I loved what you were saying. How can you even accept a gift that is going right back to the person that gave it to you in a transaction simply to live? You're talking about this as an insult, and it is, and I think that we have this
Interestingly
idea.
enough, though, obviously not intended as an insult, especially from Nihal.
Yeah, but and I think that's what makes her.
But that's why we've seen all the context that makes it an insult, because that's why she does. That's why she is the one to go give it. She is the one who doesn't know the context, who doesn't know the history, who needs to ask why Ismail was put in jail.
And like literally, she is. Still
they don't
like
even know her.
She is still like a wealthy woman. What else does she have to give them? But you know, she. I don't want to blame Nihal or anything like that. But like in giving them money, she could intuitively think like, well, what does this kind of look like to them? But like with her position of power and wealth, does she even think like that? I don't know.
But here's where it gets really intriguing, right? We'll switch from interesting to
Finally,
intriguing.
God.
Finally.
Aiden says to Nihal in again the scene of the movie that we're reviewing. He talks about how she is doing this, participating in this charity because she's good of heart, right? And like this is, and she's expressing openly like this is the one way where I feel like I can give back. And to him, it seems trivial, but to her, it seems like everything. And if we think about why Aiden is not allowed in the meeting when they're finalizing these donations, I think it's again because there's a difference between Aiden's utility as like a pay pig and his his status as just like a good guy, right?
Yeah.
And there's a difference, and he doesn't realize a difference.
His status is not that he's a good guy. I reject that.
Yeah, that's what I mean to say. And one does not, and the money doesn't make up for the latter. And I think we see this interesting tragedy in the character of Nihal, where the one way she feels like she can help is the one way that is the ultimate insult to the people she's trying to help themselves.
I mean, you could really take a class reading of it and say that she, despite all of her, all of her good aspects to her character, is unable to overcome the markers of her class, and that is because it's a little, I think, essentialist. I think there's more to the character, but because she's so rich, she is unable to see that this is a bad idea and an insult to the people that she's trying to help.
Yeah.
There's also this idea of what is she looking for? Some sort of purpose or some sort of absolution through the work she's doing. But we have in the first scene where she gets...
Continue.
Sure.
Continue.
Well, I was going to say is in the first scene that she really has a participating role, it's when Suavi is visiting, and Aiden is reading them this email that he received.
Oh, yeah.
That's
the first time we see her.
And in the context of the emails, that there's a smaller town I think called Garnip. And we end up seeing it later in the film. There is a desire from this woman who says that she's a student of his articles and of his philosophies, and that she's so in awe of his connections and of his mind that they want essentially his financial support to set up this institution. And for him, it's clearly a point of pride, as he's just so happens to bring these people around to read out this email about how wonderful he is.
They're like, nobody reads your paper. He's like, yeah, they do. I got a letter about it.
He's also skipping. He even, this is in Texter's dialogue. He's like, oh, we can skip this part. The parts that he reads is how amazing he is, right?
Yes.
And so for this married couple, charity for one of them is for Aiden, we see it serve two purposes in the narrative. One, to stroke his ego in this instance, and then another to assuage an interpersonal issue. Or to act as some sort of evidence to his good character, giving money to Nihal's fund, telling Levin that he donated all of this lira when there was this big issue.
When he did it anonymously anyway. I mean, yeah, he just says whatever benefits him the most in the circumstance.
And he thinks that the anonymity gives him a sort of moral virtue. Now, maybe this is
He's
because
like,
I'm thinking
I didn't even ask for credit when I gave all that money.
There's an amazing episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm about this with Ted Danson. But the point I'm making in the broad strokes is that we construct this idea that charity is not a way to absolve yourself of being shitty to other people.
Yeah.
This is an idea we reaffirm. And so then with that framework, what does that make the value of the charity that Nihal is trying to participate in?
Yeah. Abram, thank you for bringing up that scene, that opening scene where he's reading out the email, where it's like the one time that he is like perhaps truly openly excited or interested earnestly in giving to charity of some kind is directly from somebody who is like
the ego glazing.
Exactly. The glazing is crazy from this email.
By the way, that excitement lasts all of 30 seconds.
Yeah. And then
totally
like later on they ask him, "Oh, whatever happened with that letter?" And he's like, "I didn't do anything about it." So which means he didn't write back. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He just
took the compliment.
Yeah, took the compliment.
Yeah, true.
Took the compliment
to the point of charity and the intent of charity, or I don't know, not intent, but well, so there's this moment where I don't remember who two characters are having a conversation about charity, and they mention
this movie
that
two characters having a conversation in this movie.
Yeah, I know. They mentioned that charity is only meaningful when you are when you don't have anything to give and you still do.
Yeah.
And I find that very, very philosophically fascinating because it does paint even just the general concept of charity from someone of a higher position of wealth or class as a negative thing.
Yep.
And I'm like, I've never thought of it that way. Should I think of it that way? Is it useful to think of it that way? Like, it introduces a lot of, I think, uncomfortable texture to these things. And like, does something being performative, if it does ultimately utilitarian wise, have a material impact on someone, that, like, how does that balance things out? It's very, very sociologically fascinating.
You got to dive into those obscure leftist Twitter infighting things to get to that conversation.
You really got to go deep for that.
Charity.
I mean,
helps
what do
people,
you make of?
But it means nothing to the rich, but it helps people. You know, this back and forth is honestly pretty interesting, and you know,
invented by Twitter.
It's in the capitalist system, and I mean, I didn't even bring up the thing about like, these guys are just going to use this charity as like a tax write-off. I was like, motherfuckers, so do you.
Of course he would, yeah.
Yeah. What do you make then that the lower classes in this film are so, like, they're so willing, or, well, they demonstrate a willingness to give away, or to, in a people-pleasing kind of way, or in a, you know, a selflessness, come into my home, sit by the fire and drink my tea, this is what I have, take it kind of way, that contrasts to me. I feel a real sense of compare and contrast between the hospitality, I guess is how I would kind of put it, of our landowning class and of our renting class. Like, the renters, like, are constantly trying to make the landowners happy. They're trying to improve their standing with them. But because they don't have any of the social markers that the landlords are expecting, they're just being nice, being courteous, being generous with their things. Does that contradiction or that conversation between the two, like, modes of gratitude or the modes of charity in this film, like, ring anything with y'all?
Say it one more time.
The poor people give a lot of tea. The poor people come visit to say they're sorry. And the rich people give a wad full of money, which is an insult. Or the charity that we're trying to have a committee for. How do you view that, like, difference of these two representations of charity, of through different means.
I think it is exactly what the line that Tucker just brought up. It's this idea of like giving when you have less means more. And these people are I mean, there's no utility in them giving the rich people money, but as a act of hospitality, they set out tea for them and they give them these things that are important to them, as they are probably like somewhat going hungry every night. You know, they're living off of one humble income, as they sort of say. And then we look at the other side. It's like, they give a wad of cash that was going to be given to charity, like I didn't kind of like backhandedly is like throws his wife's way as an act of passive aggression. It's like, here, take this for your charity, and then she tries to like pay it forward with that. Still, it ultimately meaning nothing materially to her, but she is so taken aback by the fact that what it would mean so much to this family that it is still thrown away as an act of rebellion or a middle finger to them, to the owning class, etc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to think
the real charity is when he burned the money because he had nothing to give and yet he did.
Yeah.
I think about the moment when Nihal, Nekla, and Aiden are sitting down for breakfast, and we see out the window, out in the distance, Hamdi and Ilyas marching through just like inclement conditions. All this mud, it's difficult, it's far. And that's a gesture. That's a sign of fealty, to use the word you used earlier, that they're going to traipse through the traipse distance not one day, but twice. And indeed, Aiden isn't even going to remember the first hike. And the second hike, his reply is simply going to be, oh, well, you know, idiot, we'll give you a ride back.
Yeah, man, like, I don't know why you came on this way.
The gesture...
He just doesn't get it. That's what's so infuriating about the character.
One other thing, by the way, you know what that implies? Is that Hamdi made that walk the first time when he showed up.
Yeah. He's made this walk many times, and the film, your idea of like class essentialism is interesting, Timo. But I think the film does, there are these little moments time and time again where it feels like the film is working so hard to reaffirm that these classes of people cannot interact with each other. They cannot understand the gestures the other is making. And I think that the film is obviously putting the moral advantage in the working class. But I think the film is also careful to just make a broad statement that neither side can understand the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that the precision, the tiny little brush by which we paint that picture that they can't see eye to eye, is through character, setting, our mise-en-scène. It's through these filmmaking things. It's not like it's a script thing because it's how we get it through our characters. But I do think that like I'm like struggling to be like, yes, this film engages in a lot of like class essentialism, that like people are the way they are because of the class that they're in. And which is, I don't actually believe that. I think that people are the way they are because of the environments that they grew up in, which is like a Venn diagram like that, right? Yes, it's really close, but it's not the same. And I think that this film does actually understand that. And really,
because it's also interesting to note that from what we learn, that Aiden didn't come from what's interesting, because he talks about how he was like, I had nothing, like you wouldn't understand.
But that's his rationalizing. That's his rationalizing. Like, the film shows us that he comes from wealth because his dad is a landowner, and the other people in
I think it's a little bit of a small loan of $1 million kind of situation.
I think it is.
You know what? You're probably right. My bad. I just remember that line, and I remember thinking about it, like, oh,
even the thing of like, oh, you know, I backpacked across Europe with my friends. I was like, yeah, and your dad
and you gave
had like a dozen rental properties,
back home.
A nest egg of cash for you to lean back on.
Yeah, and you gave up when the going got hard, as you said to this guy who was talking about how
as
he
opposed
loves
to the
how
guy driving the really nice motorcycle. He's like, I love it when it's hard, but that guy's probably also wealthy.
Yeah,
he's staying at this presumably very nice, very touristy, comparatively, place. Like,
I mean, the hotel itself is like, I mean, the design of it, of course, we mentioned it's like set into a mountain. It is kind
it's beautiful. Oh
as
my
all
God,
the
it's just
buildings
like,
are.
Yeah, all the buildings are.
So cool. Never seen
never
anything
seen
like
that before.
It. Never
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
anything like that.
But relating back to the walk that we were talking about just a moment ago, one of the earliest conversations in the movie, I believe, is between Aiden and Suavi, I want to say, where he's like, "Hey man, you should get that road like covered in gravel or something." And he's like, "Nah, I mean, it doesn't look as good." Like,
As natural. It doesn't look as natural.
It doesn't look as
and
natural.
He's like,
and also, he's like, well, it would make it the walk up easier. It's like, nah, it doesn't look as good. It's like he wants the walk up to be harder. A, maybe as an act of subjugation, or B, maybe as an act of like, I don't want people just like just waltzing up to my hotel. Like, I kind of want to be at the top of the mountain by myself in my little castle. I mean, I haven't brought it up so far, but I think the movie really gives you like the core of his character in one of the very first conversations. The first time that he sits down to write at his laptop, he's saying it about his column or whatever and why he writes at a small newspaper. But he says to his sister, "My kingdom may be small, but at least I'm the king." That is exactly who Aiden is. In all aspects of his life, he's like,
he's got the fiefs, he's got the rent.
He exactly.
Chekhov's themes.
He wants to, whether it be in conversations, he wants to be the big fish in the small pond. In conversations, in his rental properties, in his intellectual writings, etc. Like, there's a reason why he writes for these small papers and isn't until the very end of the movie, in almost a comedic sort of way, he writes the title of his big book on Turkish theater or whatever.
Of which he's been doing all the writing.
Yes.
He's been doing all the research already.
Dude, when he says, I mean, it's like the joke of...
It smells like bullshit.
It's like the joke of procrastinating as a writer is like, oh, I've done all the research. Now I just need to do the easy part, writing it. It's like he says that to the motorcycle
when he hasn't
guy.
done any work on it at all.
I mean, literally... I'm gonna be honest, that's the only true thing he says in the whole movie.
Oh, sure, fair point. But it's when he writes the title at the end of the movie. It's like the thing of SpongeBob, the episode of SpongeBob where he used to write the essay, and then he writes the very fancy.
This is such a good today.
This is such a good point you're raising, Tanner, because he wants to cultivate this like bohemian subculture in the Turkish countryside.
First of all, looks great. I mean, his whole study looks awesome. Like the lighting
masks
of it, the
and
books
stuff on the
walls
and
everything.
Cool.
He wants this bohemian environment where these free-spirited writers, like this guy who's here to collect his travels into this book that he has this deal for. He wants people like that who come and have no end goal for their stay, that move with the wind, that are unconventional. He wants that. He wants to be a writer.
He is living vicariously through them, for sure. Yeah.
Because here's what he's doing. He's creating this environment. He's like, I want to preserve the naturalism of the environment and the spirit of the place. I want these artists to show up. I'm also going to write about how like all these like Muslim men are kind of unkempt. Yeah. And I'm going to write about how organized religion is just like not going the way I want it to go.
Why don't these guys have clean clothes and nice haircuts?
And it's like, and again, dissonance, right? This space that he wants to cultivate, this life that he has as this proprietor, is so much different than both his body of work or where, as it appears, he makes a lion's share of his income. Because the other detail about the hotel that I think is so amazing is that there's like 2 people there.
Yeah, for the whole there's movie. Like nobody there. It's winter. It's like the off season. I guess.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But I think
not at first though.
True.
True. Sort of not at first.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very deliberate to show that the minimum capacity for this place is really like 2 people. His enterprise is in collecting debt and collecting
That's a good point.
rent. Yeah. And he wants to craft this alternate life for himself that he can't. And I think this is where we ought to talk about the ending.
Yeah.
Because it is interesting where he is, it feels like he is. And this is where it gets into your question. I thought it was really interesting. But just in a textual way, it feels like he is trying to provide Nihal with this love that he realizes he doesn't have and probably wants. But he's also in some way bending the knee to his sister because now he's writing about a topic that is actually germane to his life. So I think the interesting melancholy of the ending is that it feels like he is in some ways, if somewhat ingenuinely, progressing himself.
Yeah, that's what so this whole movie, my question, we have an unlikable character, right? The one question that I'm thinking about the whole time is like, when are they going to change their ways? When are we going to be either shown, which this film does the whole time, that this is like a bad and unlikable character, or like, are they going to get some comeuppance? Where's some change, some repercussion? And this film holds it all the way back until this very last moment. And I think that it's such just like a tiny little step over the line. It's like not really very far towards change. But I do get a note of him. Did he listen? Did he interpret? Did he hear or understand or grok anything that happened? No. But is he changing as a result of what happened?
Did you just say, did he grok something?
Yes, yeah, that's where
that's what it
comes
from. I'm reclaiming it.
Oh wait,
we're reclaiming it.
What's the actual word?
Grok is a verb, like to figure out or like to reason
understand or something.
That's fucking crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest though, you haven't reclaimed it. I thought of fucking Elon Musk when you said that.
We'd never invoke him on this episode of
No, absolutely, absolutely not.
So, well,
by the way, they also laughed when you said that. So I'm glad I wasn't like alone on that. I really did not know.
Yeah, it's like change is coming. The season has changed. I think the weather of this film, Kurosawa vibe, it matters. Ooh. It's intentional. Like the way that it's muddy at times, and then we got to see mud on the shoes. Like the natural environment and the weather specifically melds with our characters to make our full environment. And I don't know where we're leading. I don't know if our character is going to improve, but the starting of the book which is in his wheelhouse, and the monologue that he goes on makes me a little hopeful, I guess, that this guy could change. And that's where we're left at. And I find I kind of like that as an ending. I mean, I think that we have this character that we are so thoroughly proven is an asshole and a leech that then maybe he can change. Maybe, but I don't need to see that. I don't need to see him go through all the struggle of that. I just need to have that little idea there and know that, well, maybe he'll write the book and maybe he'll only put down the words that we see him put down. And I think that's like, as an ending to a film, that's good enough. I think that like the thematic material that we're doling out here in the final scene is a lot more than just like, well, we'll see, but yeah.
Yeah.
I have a theory. You go, Tanner. Okay. Or no, I'll go. You told me to go. It's too late. I'm going.
Okay.
I think that the rabbit, I think the killing of the rabbit is really key.
Oh, sure.
Okay, yeah. I was kind of forgetting.
That is his moment of like reconciliation. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Mm-hmm. Let me put this to you. Who in this narrative but Aiden would be so proud of shooting such a small rabbit on accident?
Point. Yeah, nobody.
The rabbit's just eaten from a bush. He's like trying to wash off his foot in the river, and then he sees the rabbit
and he shoots it.
And he blasts it to fucking Kingdom Come.
To smithereens.
But it doesn't like die. It lays there living for a while.
He watches it take its last breaths.
It's like the most pitiful accidental hunting trophy ever. And he brings it back and he passes it off to his servant as Nilal watches from the window. And what I wonder about is whether he's getting better or whether he thinks that the following things can happen on his terms. He can be a hunter because he just happenstance shot this rabbit. Mm-hmm. He can reconcile with Nilal when she does not want to see him at all. He said he'd be gone. He comes back a day later.
Right.
He thinks that he can be this writer by putting down the title onto the page. But perhaps what the film is reasserting is that Aiden is really not that different than when he started the film.
I tend to agree with Abram. Maybe call me a pessimist if you must, but like especially after
This is a textually supported interpretation, so I'm gonna agree with it too. I like it a lot.
I mean, literally, Nihal says like you were just able to say whatever you want. Like you could you're a man who just talks. You're a fountain of words that can just like lead people to believe, or you think you can lead people to believe anything about you. And you even see him try to do that 2-3 different times in that argument with her. And so I have no reason to believe that when he is supposedly pouring his heart out to her at the end of the movie and saying like, I understand you don't love me, but you can't leave me or whatever. Like, I have no reason to believe that he believes any of that shit. I have no reason to believe that he's earnest in any way. And yeah, the killing of the rabbit and everything like that. I think that all supports this. And even his look up to the window, I think, shows like I think in sorry, I have to get the actor's name here. Bill Ginner's his facial expression in that moment reads to me as not genuine, is what it reads to me. It feels like the old Aiden who left a day ago. Like, and the moment for him would have been this conversation with the teacher, but as we already mentioned, he has his mind made up about this guy. He does not respect him. He is bracing himself to be maybe intellectually challenged in a way that he is not comfortable with, but he laughs him out of the room, and then he vomits, of course. But he does that is his defense. Is like, I'm not taking you seriously. I'm laughing you out of here after you quote Shakespeare.
And he made up he made up that mind an hour or two prior
because
in the movie.
because he can't allow himself to be challenged.
Because he
can't allow himself to open
spiteful. And people slight him, and he's just got to use his power and his influence and his intellectualism to bite right back at them. And he's gonna take out his anger in the column, or he's gonna humiliate the family. Like I think the specific words that Nihal used to describe his character, I mean, of course they're spot on. It's like fiction, but they are spot on. I mean, he's so spiteful. He just like
he hates everybody. That's what
he hates everybody, and
numerous
he cannot
characters say that.
And yet he needs to be liked so bad. He needs to be liked,
to be needed, but also he hates everybody.
Yeah, and so you just get this guy that's like a mess as a result. I mean, this just kind of leads me to put in a kind of closing note that like this film is so connected with the human condition. I mean, this character is so complicated, and the situation is so complicated.
We say that like, oh, he needs to be needed. It's like, yeah, everyone needs to be needed,
but
it's the particular way in which this guy with his real world power, with his his material ability, seeks to achieve that.
Yeah, and so it just makes me think about much broader scenarios and much more context than what the film gives. I just extrapolate these findings and these ideas that this film has to all kinds of areas in life. And it's like really makes me love it a lot. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Let's see here. The one line that in the movie, again, that I just want to think, I go back to, underlines all of this, is in my thing about him, men of a certain age acting in this fashion, wealthy men of a certain age acting this way. I believe this is said about Nekla's husband, but the line, people don't change much after a certain age. Like, I think that is as much about Aiden as it is about Nekla's husband, or ex-husband, sorry.
Yeah. Y'all, Tucker, Abram, got any other closing-ish thoughts on this one?
I don't think so. I think just what I'll say, not that I think it's worth getting into because this is a robust Quest episode already, but I just think that the strength of the screenplay is that there's just dimensions we haven't even touched on. This notion of
all the gender politics stuff too between husband and wife.
Yeah, the value of resisting evil.
Yes, that's a good point. We did talk about
this notion of forgiveness, but I don't even. I'm gonna be honest, I'm really hungry.
And Tucker's internal body temperature is reaching 102 degrees.
Boiling over.
I think that this film is the screenplay is just, it's so airtight despite being so broad, and I think that that's neato. It
is super neato, isn't it?
It's really the Don't Look Up of this year.
Of 2014?
I don't know, man. Just let me live.
Tanner.
Yes?
Would you supply us with some Palme details while we give this here movie a score?
Supplies.
Certainly. What do we got here? 2014. All right, here we go. In the year 2014, the film Winter Sleep was the sole winner of the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. The jury president this year was friend of the show, Jane Campion of New Zealand.
Oh?
Did you say who or oh?
Whoa.
Oh, okay. I thought you said who for a second, Timo. I was like, Timo, come on. Jane Campion, Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog, man.
Okay.
Dude, I was like listening to the AFF On Story radio show, and she showed up like 2 weeks ago. It's about Power of the Dog. That movie came out 3 years ago.
Let's see. Big names on the jury. I have recognizable names include Sofia Coppola was on the jury this year.
That's a big name.
I mean, a friend of everyone ultimately, but also friend of the show. Willem Dafoe was on the jury this year. Gael Garcia Bernal was on the jury, and one man in particular that is a personal favorite, someone in this call, is Nicholas Winding Refn was also on the jury this year. Over the 17 other
He's become
films...
my enemy, I have to just say, as a sidebar.
Okay, fair enough.
I think after Only God Forgives, he's really just become my enemy.
Okay, fair enough. 17 other films in competition that did not win the Palme d'Or like Winter Sleep did. Notable entries include The Clouds of Silmaria by Oliver Assayas, Leviathan by Andrei Zyagnestev.
I would kill to do an episode about Leviathan on this show. That is an equally like broad, long, kind of domestic drama that just like boom drills right down into some intense and personal issues. It's about like Russia and how bad Putin is, and it hits pretty home.
Let's see. Mommy by Xavier Dolan was this year. The Search by Michel Hazanavicius, a friend of the show. And The Wonders by Alice Vorvacher was this year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Who's who?
Yeah.
Who's who?
Of European filmmakers.
Uh-huh.
While we get our scores, and I'll just remind everybody about Nicholas Winding Refn's Amazon Prime TV show where Miles Teller is a cop who's having sex with an underage girl and the dad's okay with it. I'm not trying to be like a depiction is endorsement. I just think that show sucks.
Oh, sure. I mean, I didn't even recall that he had the Amazon Prime series, frankly.
He's finally making movies again, which is a nice change of pace. He's either been making TV shows nobody watched or TikToks with Hideo Kojima, which are kind of funny at least.
I'm just going to keep my tongue shut. Keep my mouth shut and my tongue tied about old Nicholas Winding Refn.
I see.
Save my reputation here.
Alrighty.
Scores 3, 2, 1, go!
Deep.
Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Oh, boy. Well,
wow.
Thank you, Mr. Rounding. Thank you, Mr. Rounding, because we do not have a tie. We actually have a new number 2. 9.3. Guess that's above? That's above 9.1 and above 9.2. No more voting. Still need your votes, though. Winter Sleep's going to go at spot number 2 on our list of all of the Palme d'Or winners, I guess the ones that we've seen. I'll remind you of the top film, in case you forgot, would be Parasite, Bong Joon-ho's movie. Got a little 9.9 from us. And then Winter Sleep, 9.3. But then the top film of the 9.2 ties would be the Kenneth Loach film I talked about, I, Daniel Blake.
Boy, we do love our 2010s Palme d'Or winners about like class
kitchen
and
sink
domestic
realism.
Issues, Yeah.
You telling me that movie's about class at the top of the question of bestest ranking?
What? No,
not the 1, 2, 3.
Well, hey, it just so happens that the Cannes jury has a particular favorite film topic as well.
So this makes the stakes of the concubine pianist vote slightly different.
Because if Farewell My Concubine loses, it's out of the top 10, right?
No, it's still in the top 10.
Oh, it's still in the top 10. Okay.
I think it'd be number 9.
It would be,
right?
You're right. Farewell My Concubine would be number 9 if it loses. But if you think it's better than The Pianist, write a 8 in the comment and it'll go at number 8. Or just write that it's better.
It's better to write the name.
Better to be clear in your vote so we don't have any hanging chads like Bush v. Gore.
Yeah, just putting an 8, we're like, huh?
What? Okay.
Well, there we go. Winter Sleep. Very interesting. Wow. That's the word I'd use to describe this film. Or fascinating.
Mhm.
Which one?
Perplexing.
Enigmatic.
Enigmatic. A little cold. Channeling a little Dr. Zhivago at points.
Okay. Now, Tim, let's find out what we have. We have a couple weeks off to chew on the heater run that we just went on. By the way, I just want to remind people that the last couple that we covered were Underground, Farewell My Concubine, and now Winter Sleep, all of which got extremely high scores from us.
All top
Underground.
10.
Yeah. It's all top 10 in the last 3, so it's a good time to be a Quest viewer. I don't think there's a bad time to be a Quest viewer, but the
Class is up there too.
Oh yeah, the class.
the
That's
class. Well, we like the class quite a bit as well. Yeah. So in some weeks' time, we will rejoin y'all with, I guess, another movie.
Yeah. Well, let's find out what it is.
Well, yeah, we do have to figure that out. You ready, Tanner?
I'm ready. Wheel, what's your deal? Give us a movie that makes us squeal. Is it on digital or is it on real? Wheel, what's their deal?
Wheel.
24. That's the deal.
24.
What number is that going to be?
So this will land us right in the swinging 60s, with a film from the year 1966 specifically. This is a film that stars people that I'm not familiar with, frankly. Nora Ricci, Gaston Moschin, and Virna Lisi. From director Pietro Garami. This is The Birds, the Bees, and the Italians.
The Birds, the Bees, and the Italians.
Mm-hmm. This is a straight up comedy. I think one of the few straight up comedies that have ever won the Palme d'Or.
Huh. How long is it?
It's 115 minutes.
Sure.
1 hour 55.
Longer than Karate Kid Legends.
Oh wait, okay. I'm getting some red flag words in this film description here. It's a long one.
I read it too.
Yeah, it's a long one, so I'll try. Wait,
read it for me here.
I'll read the first sentence. Okay. An anthology film that presents 3 storylines, all set in the Italian town of Treviso. In the first story, oh wait, that's it. That's the end of the first sentence, and then it just summarizes all 3 stories. I don't know if we want to do that or not. But the third one has some questionable materials in it, I will say.
I'm seeing that now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in blind.
Yeah,
this is gonna be a barn burner Quest episode.
One way or another. I think it just might.
The Quest Morality Police is going to be locking down the scene next week.
We have canceled Aiden for his problematic age gap marriage, and now who knows what we're going to get up to with
who knows what
these
birds and bees and Italians. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's going to be a little bit of a wait, but we'll have some new scenery in my little picture and a new movie to talk about when we come back. Excited with trepidation. I'm trepidatiously excited. I was trying to think of another big, giant, long descriptor word to put in there and to make, trepidatiously, expeditiously, some, supercalifragilistic type.
You're trying to sort of, elevate yourself above stuff with your intellectualism. Once again, Timo.
It's kind of my job, It's like, well, what's a guy who's a host supposed to do? Come on. It's like, I just got to host a few episodes, what do you... All right, this was a fun one. I really enjoyed talking about Winter Sleep with y'all. And dear audience, go check this one out. It is not super available online, but I found it online.
Yeah.
And so you can too if you really try.
It's on Canopy.
It's on Canopy. And so if you got a library card, you probably have it.
It's also on Amazon Prime. You can take a free trial of like a sub service and just watch it that way.
It's also on the Internet Archive, but only with Spanish subtitles. I didn't know how to change that, so...
Your mileage will vary depending on the languages you speak.
Exactly.
So Tanner's interpretation of this film is actually a Spanish to English translation that he did in real time.
That's right.
Guys, by the way, speaking of movies that we're going to have to find unconventional places.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this one's got 2,000 logs on Letterboxd. This is going to be
really?
This is going to be a tough one.
Well,
I wonder what about the content, much like the Silent World made distributors saying, maybe we shouldn't get this one out and about.
In the year of our Lord 2025, they might have objected to this one.
I still don't know what you guys are talking about.
We will either object or not, depending on what happens in this movie next time. And stick around until then. More backlog banter content in the pipeline while I'm away. And, the normal stuff, movie reviews as usual. What we do here on this here channel. So that'll be it from me. Stay cool, keep warm.
Please, God.
Please, God, stay cool, please.